If you have just joined us on your podcast app and you're listening to this is the icebreaker before Chris Burtenshaw's main podcast. This will last about 20 minutes and we'll roll straight into his main podcast. I highly recommend you do this one first and then the main podcast second. Do them in order, people. Do them in order. Chris, welcome to H Hour.
Thank you for having me.
No problemo. All right, let's hit you with the first question from subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
How hard was it being a new para during Afghanistan? So we were talking off air. You joined mid 2010, just before
Herrick 13.
Herrick 13, which was 3Para's third Afghan tour time.
Yep.
So what was it like being a new para during Afghanistan? Hugh has said in the past, new paras joining after the battalion's been on a kinetic tour get worse treatment than they would do otherwise. Like it's a harder time to join. What's your experience?
I didn't find that, but I believe that was only because we were so close to getting deployed. Obviously, we had the period between 2008, 2010. Had I rocked up just after 2010, 2008, sorry, and then I'd had all that period between 8 and 10, I probably would have had a bit of a harder time of it. But we were that close to getting deployed. My feet didn't even have a chance to touch the ground. So I was treated fairly with platoon sergeants and full screws and lance jacks, for sure. Mainly because nobody knew who I was. So it was very easy to not blend into the background. But the way that I was actually told, I rocked up 2010. I walked in, I was based with 8 company, 1 platoon. I walked into the office and there was Sergeant Groves there. And he turned around and he went, I need volunteers to go to this new checkpoint that we've just had to
Grovesy
form.
will be listening to this.
Grovesy will be listening to this. So he went, I need volunteers to go to this new checkpoint that we've just formed. It's called Quadrat. They're in the office just down the corridor. So being a new bloke, you're volunteered before you're voluntold.
So this was before you went out?
Well, yeah, before I went out. It was actually formed, and then I was like, yeah, I'll go. There was me and a lad called Greenwood. And we both put our hands up and we both walked down the corridor. And that's where I first met everybody that was going to be at Quadrat. I'll say everybody, a handful of us, because it was a ragtag of random people that were put together for this checkpoint. So, yeah, that was that.
What was that? Jesus Christ. And the rest is history, as they say. We will we'll be discussing for sure Quadrat on the podcast, I think. Okay, describe have you ever been in an unexpected near-death experience? Pick from one of many, I assume. And if so, if you have, how did you get through? What was the situation and how did you get through it?
A near-death experience. Many. I'll go for the one that I want to talk about, because obviously I want to talk about like my PTSD as well. And the near-death experience I had was on the 9th of February 2011, and it was during the contact that Comrade Lewis and Lewis Henry were both shot and killed on. There were a couple of incidents during that initial contact where, at the time, the media had nominated this bloke the Nadi Ali Sniper, that he was called, because he's already shot a few people previously at Quadrat as well. He's shot an engineer. He took a shot at Dean Walton as well, Corporal Walton. There was that time there where the sniper took a shot at me as I was going over a wall. The round then hit the wall, caused me to fall back. And then during the ensuing contact thereafter, I then got hit by an RPG as well. Not hit directly, obviously, but because I'm still here with 4 limbs. But yeah, there was that as well. So, yeah.
Jesus Christ. So where Quadrat's concerned, tell me about how you maintained a mindset where you would, knowing that every time you went out the gate there on a patrol or on whatever task you were doing, that there was potential for getting smashed, or you're going to get smashed every time as in attacked. So what was the mindset you're in to maintain a sustainable mental state? And what I mean by that is not being overcome by fear,
Yeah.
not saying I'm not going. You know, what's your mind state when you're in that kind of position? Because it's a common position of a lot of people in how I think in different times in Afghanistan, different tours, but
Yeah.
being in a patrol base, having to go out and face the enemy, knowing that you've just come in and people have been killed or injured just before you, and you're going back out again to do it, maybe in the next couple of hours.
Yeah. Um, I don't know whether a lot of that goes down to the age that I was while I was out there and my naivety behind it.
How old were you?
I was 20.
You were 20.
I was 20. Yeah, because I had my 21st out there, I believe. Yeah, I did. And obviously, a lot of it comes down from Para Depot, and it's the way that they always say it's not P Company that makes the paratrooper because anyone can do a fitness test. It's the Para Depot part of it as well. It's the whole experience of the whole training from day one, week one to your pass out parade, where they take every single man and they break you down to absolutely nothing and they build you up to what they want you to be, which is what they built us up as, was warfighters who, no matter what, you're institutionalized, kind of like a cult almost, where it's like you don't feel fear, you don't feel emotion, and that's what it was for me. I couldn't attach an emotion to things that were happening out there at the time. I remember my first contact, for example. I was lead valor man, and I was up on the River Nebula, and the rounds started coming in. And at first, it took me a second to be like, "Oh, this is a two-way range. Okay, cool." And then it's like, right, I dropped to the knee, and then someone behind me got a little bit trigger happy, and I ended up getting a burst of fire come just flying past me. But then it's all that thing where the training kicks in, and it was that's what it was. It's really hard to explain. You just because you're there to do a job and you're a paratrooper and you're invincible and you're bulletproof and all this. And even yes, we know people were killed on that tour. We still went out there because everybody had the same mindset that we won't let the Taliban win from where we are. So I hope that kind of answers it.
Does answer it. Does answer it. It's conditioning, mental conditioning. I don't
Yeah,
mean
absolutely.
I don't mean conditioning in a like a negative way, as a lot of people would use that. It is
No, it's built up for the right reasons. Like the mental conditioning is built up to so you're effective while you're out there to go out there and do your job. Absolutely, they want you to be in that mindset where okay, we need you to go out there. We need you to confront and kill the enemy if necessary, and you can't have emotion attached to it. Otherwise, you won't be able to do your job, which is what they built us up to do.
yeah, yeah, and it's an interesting. It's interesting in that doesn't, in my experience anyway, that lack of emotion attached to decision making, especially in the heat of battle,
Mm.
does not translate into a lack of not empathy, but it does not translate into war crimes en masse, for example.
Yeah.
It does not translate into a zero care for collateral damage. Anyway, okay, so we've got another question here for you from David in the subscribers. So what's been your biggest challenge transitioning from the military into the private security industry?
The biggest challenge for me, it was when I left. I was medically discharged in 2013, but we'll get onto that in a little bit. It was I hope things have changed now from the way that people are discharged, and I hope that the support network was out there. But I don't know whether it was my naivety at being a 23-year-old kid and I didn't know what was out there for me. I don't think it was properly explained to me, like the avenues that you could go down. I know that people do, like Cheesy, who's been in the past, he did all of his tree surgery courses and got all of his stuff paid for. And he had all that. I didn't know anything about that, so my discharge was kind of like a thanks for your service, handshake from the CO and outdoor, straight back on Civvy Street the next day. And I was like, what the hell am I going to do? And then it took me a good 3 or 4 years to settle into get myself out of that mindset of being a paratrooper. So you're a civilian now. because you cannot transfer that mindset onto civvy. You can in some respects, but not in just normal civvy street. You can't transfer being a paratrooper coming from Afghan and dealing with all that stuff onto civvy street. It doesn't work. And I had to reprogram and rewire my brain to be able to function as a civilian. And it took me a good 3 or 4 years to do that, I'd say. That was the hardest thing. And then getting into security, it was obviously something that I wanted to do. And I was able to transfer some of the skills that you learned from the military into that aspect. So I found that quite easy to transition over.
What is the one piece of advice you'd give a 16-year-old you?
This is funny because I have a child who's going to be approaching that age very soon. It's different now because the world's changed. I say the world's changed. Obviously, we've got everything with Russia and Ukraine going on and all that stuff. But I wouldn't change anything. I would always want to be a paratrooper. Obviously, I have kids myself, so my advice to them is join and get a trade, because looking at it in hindsight, it's amazing. Join, get a trade, get your licenses, get Sparky, become a REME, become a signaller. All that's transferable onto Civvy Street. For me, I just enjoy being a paratrooper. I loved it. I love going out. I love getting into contacts. I love jumping out of airplanes. It was just the most amazing job and experience. And, you know, civvies pay thousands for it, and I got to do it and get paid for it. So it's amazing.
Who annoys you? Who makes you angry?
Who makes me angry? I don't really have that anymore. I don't have an angry streak to me.
How old are you now?
I'm 36, coming on 37.
36. You've lost that early. Normally, people get to my old age, mate. 43 and older. They're like, I'm just gonna chill. It's not worth getting angry anymore. Although I still get angry. Okay, so not really anyone.
Do I get annoyed? I get annoyed with, it's the same as anyone would. I get annoyed with current political situations that are happening. I get annoyed at that because you can, from experience, from Afghan, you can see the way that you can almost pave the way that it's gonna go. That stuff that's happening in Ukraine at the moment. You know, that kind of stuff annoys me. But same as anyone. Everyone's annoyed about that.
What's going to be the situation in Ukraine in 5 years' time?
Oh, Jesus.
You can veto that question.
Yeah. Okay, so it's going to be a situation, no change. We're not going to put boots on the ground. There's no way. If Keir Starmer does that, well, even this morning he's turned around and he said he's having to kind of take a U-turn on what he said about guaranteed putting boots on the ground, because all the countries that he's got signed up to do this peacekeeping force, they're slowly dropping like flies. We can't put boots on the ground. It's just too, and a lot of that's going to be influenced by what Trump and the US have got to have a say on the matter.
I think you're going to be surprised.
Yeah, well, this is it now. Yeah, egg on face.
Who are your inspirations?
My inspirations. Do I have someone that I admire? My inspiration. I don't have like a role. Obviously, my dad, classic. My dad was the most amazing dad. He brought me up in a loving family home, stable platform, and the whole lot. My mum, my dad, yeah, he was a strong role model for me. That actually paved the way to where I was, and even when I left the military, he was still there for me in that supportive role. Do I have an inspiration? Yeah, I'll tell you one. Tony Lewis.
Good shout, Tony. Previous HR guest, 353 founder, ex-military.
When I see the
good shout.
excuse me. When I see everything that the Lewis family had been through after comrade was killed, and the fact that he was able to build something so amazing out of something so horrible, so traumatic, that's an inspiration to me. to actually put forward what he's done for the military community, for paratroopers, and for all of us lads that were serving on Herrick 13 as well, like he does with the 353 balls and stuff like that. That he'd been hosting over the last 10 years. Yeah, he's definitely an inspiration of mine. Yeah.
Past or present, dead or alive, who would you most like to have a beer with?
Past or present, dead or alive, who would I most like to have a beer with? Probably someone, I would honestly say someone like Field Marshal Montgomery, because I'd like just to sit down just to get his whole experience on the Second World War and be like, how the hell did you manage this? Like, what the hell? So many working parts of that war, from Italy to Africa to Europe. It's like, how did he keep his head screwed on so much when we were so on the back foot? Yeah, Montgomery, even someone down to like Churchill as a wartime prime minister. How did he keep his head screwed on so much? Even he served during the First World War as well, didn't he? But yeah, someone like that. I would say go for like the influential military leaders kind of thing.
Good shout. We are going to roll now into the podcast proper. So for the people, the paid subscribers watching live, we're going to take a 5 to 10 minute break. In fact, we'll still be back at 10:20 a.m. And if you're listening on your app, this is going to roll straight into the podcast proper, where we are probably going to start off with your experiences in Quadrat in Afghanistan that summer, over the winter 2010, 2011.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, cool. And I think you may be the first person on a podcast talking through the experiences at that checkpoint at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Stand by, folks.